going to go ahead and record, share screen, present. All right, that looks awesome. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start. So hi, my name is Frank Milella. I am a student at Cornell College, and today's date is February 10th, 2021. And this presentation is on Kinesiology 327, a class at Cornell for adaptive physical education. And this is a clinical experience reflection presentation. Let's go ahead and get started. First up is my special needs philosophy. And during my special needs philosophy, this was like my beliefs before. I was scared, curious, unaware of how special education, like adaptive physical education, would go. But it was very enlightening to see it from a whole nother perspective. I learned so much by meeting with like the director of the Special Olympics and meeting with Ginger Halverson, who is a special education teacher. She kind of showed us, like she answered like a lot of the questions that I would have about special education. Like, for example, say if a student lashes out, I wouldn't know how to handle the situation or how to get that group back into learning, instead of being distracted from one student who was lashing out or any type of circumstance. Ginger came up with ideas and tests that she said that would be best, like for example, having like the student go out in the hall, get a drink of water to calm down. Or if you have like a second teacher or a paraprofessional, they're always able to assist and help you out as well. And that made me feel a lot better about it. So I guess my beliefs after would be something that like I would like to learn more about, and especially how I want to be a physical education teacher. I still have to learn because in general education, students with disabilities are still implemented into the general education. So this allowed me to learn how to give them accommodations for when I'm teaching a class. Moving on to the next slide. We got lesson/activity plans. Over the course, we were able to make some plans for to be presented in front of the Special Olympics, and that was a lot of fun. And one of the ones that we did was flexibility in me. Me and my partner, Alex Gillespie, came up with this because flexibility is very important for relaxing your muscles. And I think it's important that the Special Olympics athletes should be aware of stretching because they are athletes and they should understand about how important stretching is. So we came up with a popcorn game, which was our application portion for it. And the popcorn game was basically like in your reading class where like you would read a paragraph, then you would popcorn off to someone else. So you play that game when you're like a little kid. Same deal here, except we're popcorning off to different stretches. And I'd ask them what type of stretches that we went over like in the class that we taught, what muscles did they work? And they answered them perfectly. And we even talked about it in the closure, why is it important? And I thought the lesson went great overall. But some of the mistakes that I did make during the lesson was maybe slowing down on the counts, having a hydration break, and making sure that they get a chance to have any questions, like they should be able to feel free to ask me. I think the time was short because we only had 25 minutes to do it. If it was longer, like if there was no exact time limit, I feel like it definitely would have ran more smoother. But when I was constructing the lesson, it was just like, okay, we need to make sure that they understand these movements. We have time for every single section, which we mainly did. But I guess timing was a bad part on me, but that would be the only thing I could really think of. Moving on, history and philosophy. First of all, it started off in the 1950s and 1960s of just thinking about Special Olympics, but it was originally just a summer camp. Next would be like the first Special Olympics finally occurred in Soldier Field in Chicago, 1968. That is the picture on the screen, if you can all see that. I thought that was pretty cool to find online. Also, there's social norms now in today's world where they're promoting change of these social norms. So now people are more embracing the Special Olympics and it's becoming more and more popular every day. And there's not really any legislation laws that enforce these social norms, but they do help out, but not in the ways that you would think. Human development. The basically a general idea for Special Olympics. It's year-round sports training for competition and Olympic type sports for individuals with intellectual disabilities. Um, Professionals observe the athletes who play the sports, and basically the benefits for the athletes in participating in this is that they get to make new friends, new teammates. They have tools that they can use for the rest of their lives by learning just about this, and it just improves their overall physical fitness. Moving on. Okay, unique attributes of the learner slash athlete. Uh, Students slash athletes, they were communicating very well in the meetings that I attended. Um, Professionals definitely take initiative in controlling the lesson. For example, they were solving a distraction. When I think it was during the hydration meeting, we would talk about how we hydrate ourselves. And one student kind of got distracted and was not paying attention to us because sometimes it's hard to stare at a computer for so long. They get distracted. They start talking to their family members. But the professional did take initiative. And by saying like, hey, I'm going to mute your mic, feel free to come back when you're ready, mutes the mic so everyone else will still be able to talk and communicate, and just brought everyone back together as a whole. And I thought that was a really great way to get everybody back into it because we are on Zoom. It's unfortunate that we can't all see each other in person. You don't get that face-to-face connection, but it was just a great technique that the professional was able to use. Also, using a checklist. They use a checklist to track everybody's progress throughout the week that they're doing these movements, and they check in with them at these online meetings, which makes it great. Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. Measurement, student slash program evaluation and assessment. The physical and medicinal backgrounds evaluate and the eligibility to compete. This just allows them just to see if the athletes, where they stand or what type of intellectual disabilities they might have for them to compete in what sports, because each sport has a category in the Special Olympics, so they just need to find the placement from where they are, and the assessment determines that ability for them to compete. Also, it also assesses their safety for the athletes, because like the athletes might have too much stress for doing one movement or a certain sport, and also it might be painful for them to do. So this kind of tries to find that correct measurement of where exactly they need to be when performing these sports or any type of manipulative motor movements, I guess. So let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. Curriculum theory and development. Basically, they have goals for the athletes, and the goals have to be relatable to like the season slash sport that they are doing. And what's great is that everything can be done at home because everything is online now, like we are under a pandemic. Like I said, the past couple slides, they make sure that they go over important workouts. For example, stretching. I talked about stretching already, but can't stress enough how important stretching is for you before and after workouts. But they have a thing called like stretching Sundays. So they actually do get workouts that they need to do, and they need to understand that like, oh, stretching is important for you, or even like the means that we attempted, oh, hydration is very important for you. Also, when they're doing these activities throughout the week, they're making sure that these activities involve their motor skills and fundamental skills. So they're still working on those, trying to improve them, make them better, or at least trying to maintain them, because hopefully COVID will be over, so they go back into training in person again. Moving on. Instructional design, planning, and teaching slash instruction. Obviously, that requires qualifications of the staff, so they're able to explain everything to the athletes, and the athletes can understand what they're trying to say. COVID pandemic Zoom meetings I have on there because this is how they would this is how they're exactly planning right now. They've been doing like, I want to say once or twice a week Zoom meetings, and if they need to have any private meetings, if athletes don't potentially understand something, the private meetings could help them out with the one-on-one, and it works better with the communication. Also, when they're planning, they have this activity checklist for athletes to do to try and perform. Like I said, there was like something about like stretching Sundays, and there was other ones that I cannot remember, but they have like a week thing to make it fun when planning and designing and instructing these. There was one thing that I did talk about in my portfolio that I wanted to add, or maybe they already had, but it would be an activity analysis, and that would be ways for checking students' optimal performance. Now, that might be kind of hard to see, especially online in Zoom, but if they do that in person, that's awesome. That's great. But it'd be nice to try and find a way to do that over Zoom since we are still under a pandemic, and hopefully this will all be over soon. But that's really it. Let's go ahead and move on. Consultation, staff development, and continuing education. So mainly the staff comprises of just volunteers and fundraisers, and basically for those volunteers, all they have to do is be 18 or older and have a background check. For coaches, they have to have sports training certifications, and they have to be knowledgeable in the sport that they're going to be teaching, of course. But one thing I would like to add to recommend for qualifications, maybe not qualifications, but recommend for like the volunteers, the coaches, is to learn some sort of like take a class like the class I'm in right now, like recommend some sort of like adaptive physical education course to all the staff, just so they can understand and learn how to like teach better and come up with different like activity plans or even lesson plans for the athletes so they understand, okay, this is what I need to do to get my athlete better, and this is how I accommodate to them, and so on. I feel like that would be very beneficial for the Special Olympics. Moving on, ethics and communication. Obviously, the communication right now is online meetings. Not much we can do right now, but hopefully we'll be in person soon. Teachers are always, well, I guess the teachers, professionals, coaches, like they're all taking initiative by trying their best, trying to make Zoom as fun and creative as possible. And sometimes it's hard to communicate with the athletes because being on your laptop or any sort of device to get on here, it might be hard for them to get it on. Not everybody has the best Wi-Fi, and it is hard to communicate, but sometimes you can get that one-on-one meeting. And I know it does suck talking over a screen, but I'd rather be in person as well. But sometimes it works, and sometimes we have to make do with the best that we have. Also, as far as communication goes, I definitely think coaches should offer other sports to the athletes because the athletes might like a new sport and it's always fun for them to do, and it allows them to create new friends, new teammates, because you don't have to be sole set on one sport. Like you should be able to expand. If you like other sports, go ahead and do other sports. And this is the last slide. This would be my course experience here. Basically, what I gain most from learning in this class is just how students with disabilities receive their education and how to properly teach them if problems occur. And I talked about this in my previous slide on philosophy. Basically, there's a little rundown on that. Just I was very skeptical at first, like I didn't know what to do, but now that I learned how to do this, it's definitely something I'd like to continue to look at. Uh, I wish to better understand what a full class would be like in a school setting rather than online. I said it again, we're in a pandemic. I mean, I mentioned it multiple times, but it is something that I do have to like mention because everything is online now, and I'd rather be in that school setting to see like the paraprofessionals and the special education teachers really take action and how they teach their kids. Uh, Different approach I would take to this class, definitely really talk to the Special Olympic athletes, like to get to know them better, basically to find out like their disabilities and how to work with them at the best that I could, just so I have um, experience for in the future when I'm teaching and I'm not by my like so when I'm by myself, you know. Uh, Overall, I enjoyed my time working with everyone. I've met a lot of people in basically the physical education community, special education, Special Olympics. Working with all of them was great. I had a great time, especially working with Lewis for the past couple of months. You know, me and Nathan had him for the past 3 blocks, and I really enjoyed my time working with him. And I wish to continue working with him for my time at Cornell and future for advice I ever need. And I think that'll sum up my lesson or my presentation. Thank you for having me.